How are you, folks? The Enzo DiCostanzo podcast, part 8 of the Federal Open Market Committee meetings lectures, and we're going to hit that right now. Yeah, so we left off with the relationship between interest rates and inflation, and we're going to start now. We're going to start drilling into those meeting minutes. I think I did enough background material for you guys, so we'll start hitting the meeting minutes on this. Okay, so let's see, and not too much here. Yeah, we talked about treasuries, the difference in the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. We talked about that. Okay, so obviously here in both of these terms, inflation and interest rates, they tend to move in the same direction because interest rates are the primary tool used by the Federal Reserve, this U.S. central bank, to manage inflation. Tend to move in the same direction. We're increasing interest rates to reduce inflation. So, again, where these notes came from, sometimes you can question what that, we had low interest rates and expanding inflation is really what we had. So obviously, increasing interest rates is going to make inflation decline. That's sort of the idea. The Federal Reserve Act directs the Federal Reserve to promote maximum employment, stable prices. Since 2012, the Federal Reserve has targeted the annual inflation of about 2%, consistent with stable prices portion of its dual mandate. Okay. So I think we talked about the Federal Reserve Act. There's got to be legal structure to what you do. There's always got to be a legal structure to that. The Fed targets a positive rate of inflation defined as a sustained rise in price in the overall price level for goods and services, because a sustained decline in prices, known as deflation, can be more harmful. Okay, the positive level of inflation interest rates also provides the central bank with flexibility to lower rates in response to an economic slowdown. Okay. August 2020, the Federal Reserve adopted average inflation targeting. The framework committed the Fed policymakers to hold inflation above 2% for a time to compensate for stretches when inflation fell short of that target. Okay. Now, yeah, I mean, the initial statement here, now this makes a little bit more sense to say that inflation and interest rates move in the same direction, but with lags. With time, lag is a time delay. All right, interest rates are the primary tool used by the central bank to manage inflation. The Federal Reserve targets the average inflation rate of 2% over time by setting the range of benchmark federal funds rate, the interbank rate on overnight deposits. Yeah, that's the good definition for the federal funds rate. We like that definition. Higher interest rates are a policy response to rising inflation. Okay, that makes sense. Conversely, when inflation is falling, economic growth is slowing, central banks may lower interest rates to stimulate the economy. Yeah, okay. And the Fed plans to continue to raise rates in 2022 in order to curb the highest rates of inflation in 40 years. So, yeah. And we're going to look, there's a couple measures of inflation. These are all my data tabs here. This is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And this has, I don't recall if I probably talked about this in previous sections or previous semesters, but I have about 6 CPI tables here. And we filled in up to December. We probably have January and February sort of standing by. So actually what we'll do today is we'll just update my data here is what we'll do. Okay, that'll sort of be the Excel exercise for today. And now I think you guys already are very familiar with this. This is CPI, all items, less food and energy. This is just food by itself. This is energy by itself, gasoline by itself, shelter. Okay. And then I think we have graphs somewhere here. We have graphs somewhere. But this is the same old. Do we really need to go through a graph again on what to do with a graph? And this is some of this other stuff. This is how to get those how many times bigger CPI is and things of that nature. Okay, this is a form. This is an example that went up to 2018 or something to that effect. Maybe we'll hit this at some point too. But I just want to talk about the data. And in terms of graphing this, I mean, you could just read it off the table. You could make a graph if you want. And I think we've done enough graphs this semester instead of just continue to repeat ourselves with making graphs and making graphs and making graphs. There's other measures. This is the personal consumption expenditure tab here. And this has actually 6 or so. And actually, yeah, this is month over month change, year over year percentage changes to little more volatile month over month versus year over year. And I don't know, we went from 20 for whatever reason. I who knows? This is the inflation measure based on price index for piece. This is up to 2020, but we would certainly have to expand this data. So let's see if we can find where this data is somewhere. We can get lucky here. There it is. Yeah, we could go further with this stuff, right? Because we've filled in the table here up to 22. Yeah, up to 22. See if we can find the rest of this. It's somewhere around here, right? And this one is BW. Yeah, here it is. Okay, we're here, and we can extend this a bit. There. Okay. And you, like I said, you can make some graph as you wish. You have to always rewrite your series, and we'll go back to that. But we extended these again. So what is this? This is BZ 193 189. And here someplace, that's year over year. So whatever I've highlighted is year over year. So, and the blue one is year over year. $189 AQ and BZ. Yeah, so we're here. This is year over year percentage change. Fine. And this other one, this is 219 BZ and AQ. Yeah, this is month over month and annualized. This is month over month annualized. Okay, so that's just a measure. We compared the year over year measure and the month over month measure and sort of looked at what those were. But we'll get to that. But yeah, there's a lot of measures here. So just looking at this is from this is U.S. Department of Commerce. and this one is Bureau of Labor. This is the Labor Department. So, and I have 6 of them, but it's a little bit more because there's some of the percentage changes on here. But it's about 6 tables here. This is percentage change. Yeah, so it's these two, and these two, monthly and then annual and quarterly models. Okay. So this is real personal consumption expenditure in dollars, relative to 2012's. So basically inflation adjusted to 2012 dollars. So without the inflation effect in there. So obviously that it's going to be a little bit lower. The inflation. So you take out the price, the effect of inflation for that. These are year-over-year changes. These are year-over-year changes. Okay, and this is month-over-month annualized. We'll get to all this. Well, like I said, but there's plenty of this to talk about, and we will talk about that. So yeah, so this was written sort of at the beginning of our inflation predicament. So here's personal consumption price index, the consumer price index, how the Federal Reserve measures these. The preferred one is the first one is Department of Commerce. The second one is a survey of consumers. The other one is from businesses. The PCE, the price index tracks consumer spending and prices with business. This is through business receipts, and it used to calculate the GDP. Okay, that's why that's preferred. The second one is this one is based on a survey of consumer purchases. There's a core price index that takes out energy and food, right? Which can be more volatile and less reflective of the overall price trends. More volatile right there. How changes in interest rates affect inflation. When the Federal Reserve responds to an elevated inflation risk by raising rates, which we're living through that right now, it effectively increases the level of risk-free reserves in the financial system, limiting the money supply available for purchase of riskier assets. Yeah, limiting the money supply available for purchase of riskier assets. So yes, it says when the Federal Reserve responds to elevated inflation risks by raising the benchmark federal funds rate, it effectively in the financial system limiting the money supply available for purchases of riskier assets. And then conversely, when the central bank reduces the target interest rate, it effectively increases the money supply available to purchase riskier assets. So again, there's more supply, there's more money supply out there, there's more capital out there to lend to maybe ideas that aren't so great. There's a way to look at it. By increasing borrowing costs, rising interest rates discourage consumer and business spending. So yeah, so here's the link with borrowing costs, interest rates, and spending. Consumer and business spending. There's your link right there, your linkage, and you care about how all those pieces fit together, right? Consumers and businesses spend, they borrow, and the decision to borrow is highly influenced by interest rates, especially on cars and homes and capital equipment or capital investment. IBM building a factory in upstate New York or something like that. It says by increasing interest rates also tend to weigh on asset prices, reverse the wealth effect for individuals, and make banks more cautious in lending decisions. So yeah, so there's a lot of good stuff here. And again, so this was increasing borrowing costs, increasing interest rates, and then again, increasing interest rates signals that central bank will continue to tighten monetary policy, further tamping down inflation expectations. Okay, so an increased interest rate is attempting to control inflation, and for better or worse, we may have to really control inflation by having higher interest rates than most of my students today have ever lived through. I've lived through high inflation environments and been on the right side of that, to be honest with you, but that's not everybody. Yeah, this was the target federal funds rate. That's way, way low from where we are. We know that's a much higher number. We're in the 4.5s or so. This is maybe at that time, but we could go back. We could go back to all the press releases and see how this ranged. But maybe in May 4th, 2022, it was that low, but it's 4 times that right now. Okay. And it says problems with using the interest rates to control inflation. As the chart above shows, policymakers have responded by changing to changes in economic outlook with a lag, and their policy changes in turn take time to affect. So yeah, there's some time that's involved in this. It's not okay. We're going to make a policy change, and the effect of that policy change is going to be immediately felt. It's not okay. It can take some time, and I think we're living through sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop time right now is really what we're waiting for. But yeah, this target rate is quadruple that. So this is page 33. Yeah, here's the range is now 4.25 to 4.5. Okay, and this was December, and this may even be higher because there's a January note, there's a March note that's out there, so we have to review those, but it's even higher than what this is. It says if monetary policy is driving a car, the car is one that's unreliable speedometer, foggy windshield, and tendency to respond unpredictably with the delay of an accelerator or the brake. So yeah, Bernanke said that in 04 while still a Fed governor. For whatever reason, he was saying all that. But I know what he meant. I know that's the physics folks from Princeton saying that stuff. Central banks are trying to anticipate inflation trends, risk making policy error by needlessly stoking inflation with rates that are too low or stifling growth by rate. So again, you can make a mistake on the low end or the high end. Okay, you can again raise rates maybe too quickly or too much, and you didn't really need to restrain, economic and commercial activity, or you didn't raise them fast enough, and you were behind the curve, and then inflation got away from you, which is I think that's what happened recently, but not without I think political. I think when the public said, "Hey, prices are too high," I think if the public the noise that the public makes, but in the surveys, has a lot more to do with this than just the math guys in the back room. So, and again, it's always trying to pursue stable prices. It's always trying to maximize employment. Okay, so those are always the big goals. Everyone's working. Okay, everyone's working. Everyone's spending. It's a happy life. So, as a policy tool, the Federal Reserve uses the federal funds rate as a primary monetary policy tool. I think we've said that in several lectures here. And it's targeted as a range as opposed to a specific point in time. It's targeted as a range. It's the overnight rate which banks lend to one another over the very short term. And the Federal Reserve uses open market operations, the purchases and sales of securities. If the Federal Reserve central bank is purchasing securities, they're putting capital into the commercial banks. If it's selling securities, it's giving the commercial banks a receipt and pulling cash out of the system, pulling capital out of the system. And it's adjusting the supply of banking system reserves. By doing that, that's that federal open market, the open market operations is how you achieve that. Holding the federal funds rate on target. The demand for reserves results of banking reserve requirements supposed to ensure the soundness of banks. And the years following the global financial crisis, the focus on regulation shifted to capital buffer requirements and stress tests to ensure longer-term solvency. In 2019, the Fed unveiled a policy of targeting the federal funds rate with two other rates. It sets out outright. Okay, so obviously, a lot changed. 15 years ago, or whatever that was. The interest on reserve balances rate, which is what the Fed pays banks for overnight deposits in their Fed account. It sets effective floor under the federal funds rate, and overnight reserve purchase agreement are supplementary tools that pay somewhat lower interest rates to non-bank money market participants for overnight deposits. Okay, so there's a floor. Economists love that word. So here, let's interest on balances or in the Fed accounts. It sets an effective floor under the federal funds rate. And overnight reverse purchase agreements are a supplementary tool that pays somewhat lower interest rate to non-bank money market participants for overnight deposits. So, trying to use a lot of controls over these numbers. In 2020, the eliminated reserve requirements for banks and other depository institutions in 2020, but I don't know if that's still that way. And we should check that. It says, let's check. Okay, there's the press release for that. Yeah, what is the current reserve requirement for banks? Yeah, I think we need to know that. So yeah, so this obviously to encourage lending and to encourage commercial activity. There may have been some changes to the reserve. So I'll be teaching a class in the fall. We're going to talk about reserve requirements, and I have to be up on what's happening with this. Yeah. Just stand by, folks, while we check this out. I always like the Federal Reserve site itself. Okay, this came out recently. Okay, this is not too long ago. Extension of credit by Federal Reserve banks. Regulatory background. Yeah, here's what that interest rate, the IORB interest rate. Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, this might be the actual. Yeah, this might be the actual regulation. I just wanted the press release. I don't want to go through all that. So I hate this choice, but Federal enacted Federal Reserve purpose, lender of last resort, fluctuations, regulation. Yeah, it's 0 for all banks, which is required to hold. Reserve requirement does not exist. Okay, well, as of 2020, and this thing, I don't know if this has been updated since then, but okay. So we worked on a reserve requirement at one time, and apparently now we're off it. So I got to do some research in that. But wow, okay, that's surprising. These are some other banks, other central banks of the United States, but we've had central banks for a long time. Okay, a couple times. Okay, there's no central bank for a few years here and there, but not really. There's always been something. There's always been something. Wilson declares first series of constructive acts to aid business. Fine, great. That's great. That's yeah. This is actually I really stay away from Wiki, but sometimes you can find some good stuff on it. Okay, yeah, this is nice. This is nicely done. This is the balance sheet. Okay, that's the balance sheet. All right, so yeah, so there's been some changes. Okay, that's fine. And it says the interest rates and inflation tend to move in the same direction with the lag. So yeah, let's get back to what we're talking about here. So we're talking about inflation and interest rates move in the same direction. Lags means the impact of the policy isn't felt immediately the next day. I mean, there's the financial markets move very quickly, but corporate performance can take some time to be impacted by federal government policy decisions. Policymakers require data to estimate future inflation trends and future interest rate trends and interest rates they set take time to fully affect the economy. Higher rates may be needed to bring rising inflation under control, while slowing economic growth often lowers inflation rates and may prompt rate cuts. Okay, so this is the two good pieces of this. But there you go. Okay, now this was just sort of and we've discussed these points in other videos, but this is just sort of to throw you guys, to throw some of these words out at you guys. Okay, so the federal funds rate is the big one that you look at that really impacts banking and what Home Depot is going to do and PepsiCo is going to do and all these other how much expanding and contracting those companies are going to do by setting rates it pays on bank reserve balances. Okay. So there you go. So like I said, so I think we're pretty good with the notes and getting you guys ready. So now we're going to start hitting the action. Actually, this is a statement that was made in December by the U.S. Central Bank, and it says recent indicators point to modest growth in spending and production. Job gains have been robust in recent months, and unemployment rates remain low. Inflation remains elevated, reflecting supply and demand imbalances related to the pandemic, higher food and energy prices, and broader price pressure. So yeah, just in like the first couple lines here, there's a lot of data just right there. There's a lot of data. Spending, how do we judge spending? Production, how do we judge production? Job gains, let's look at some labor numbers. Unemployment rate, inflation. Okay, so those are all areas that we want to look at. Okay, so here, let's just take it, just getting, now we're not going to build these whole entire models, but let's just look at spending. And actually, we were just discussing this. This is just now, there's indices are a number that moves around. As it goes higher, it means something. It goes lower. If it's not, it doesn't have units like euros or dollars or meters or feet or per second or volume or anything like that. It's just a pure number that moves in one direction or another. As it moves higher, there's one interpretation. As it moves lower, there's another interpretation. But here, this is personal consumption expenditure on a monthly basis. Goods, durable goods, services, excluding food and energy expenditures. Now, this is the aggregates. These are the entire company or the entire country, and it's in trillions of dollars, right? This is 12 trillion. These are annualized. So in other words, it's not 12.972 trillion in January. It's, if the whole year behaved as January behaved, you'd have 12.972 trillion in spending for the year based on 2012 dollars. Okay. And again, I've gone through, dividing by inflation and the divisors and all, the ratio of the real to the nominal GDP and how to get the multipliers. We've done all that in previous courses, but let's just talk about spending right now. And obviously, as you look at this is the summation of the durable goods, non-durable goods, and services. This is all the goods that are added up. Obviously, services is a bigger part of it. Services is about 75% of that number. And you can see now in terms of what this had said, it says modest growth in spending. And you have to remember, this came out December 2022. So it came out here. They may not have had the December data, but looking here, this is 14.4, 14. So they may have had the September and October numbers, but you do see some growth. And actually what you can do, just as we're sitting here, just for 2022, we'll just do a quick version of this. Insert right there. So you can see you're generally moving. And actually, what we can do with this is I want markers. I want to see some markers in this. I don't know why I should have picked it before. The markers are there. The markers are right there. But let's do format data series marker built in. Let's just do a random, just as we're talking here. There you go. And that's for the 12 months, right? That's for these 12 months. If you can format the axis here, instead of 2, you could do 1 like that. You can do this. You can do layout, legend, top. Okay. So this is October, November, but they most likely had up to October's number. So you had increases going all the way from January, and then November, December. Believe it or not, it declined a bit, not a lot, but a bit on an annualized basis. I don't have the 2023 numbers, but I could. We're not going to do everything today, but I have all these models definitely need to be updated because we're in April. So there's at least January and probably February for the monthly and maybe even March. Okay, for the monthly pieces of data which are there. And actually, what I wanted to quickly do. Do we have vertical grid lines? Here, let's see. Grid lines. Yeah, we kind of have vertical ones too. There we go. Okay, so you can see where everything is here. And you can always do this to these things. You can always just tick them along. Whoops, you don't want that. You want that thinner, right? Something like that. Grid line, solid style. Right there. Okay. So yeah, so you have so this is December, this is January. So up to this, the 10th one's October, the 9th is November or is September rather. Okay, so you can see the behavior of these numbers. Okay, so yeah, so again, that was a few minutes of work. Modest growth in spending. So yeah, this is how the consumer behaves. Then it says production. Well, I mean, there's probably another survey that's out there that I don't necessarily hit very, you could look at output or something. Um, and you could look now with these numbers, output, they do quarterly measures. Okay. And this is everything. This is, if you look at economic, it's goods, services, investment. Okay, so but I mean, but you could say, hey, people are buying what's being produced, and the net is what's in inventory, kind of. So, but there's all sorts of stuff out there. So, how many cars are produced? I'm sure there's a survey for that. I looked at how the consumer behave, but believe me, those guys have everything at the tips of their fingers, and I'm sure I'm sure they're up to date on a lot of stuff. Excuse me, folks. But that's for 2020. And like I said, so for in terms of consumption, people spending, that's another model that we could look at. And this is personal income. And again, we could have an argument about this also. And this is the variety of places you get personal income: compensation, supplements to wages and salaries, proprietor's income, rental income, personal income from receipts on assets, personal current transfer receipts. Okay, so that's another version of things that you can look at. And actually, there's a monthly. This is the quarterly version of this. Again, it's probably not up. It's up to date up to the fourth quarter. Here's the monthly ones. And there's a consumption. So I mean, you could look at it this way too, and you could somewhat look at this in terms of production, because what you have here, you have a personal consumption expenditure line at the bottom of this. Mostly, yeah, that goes to December. So again, you can just highlight the year here and do the same what we just looked at. right? You can do that all over again. And again, you're seeing this again. So for consumption, you're seeing it ticks down a bit in November, December. You can see that. Instead of one tick or two ticks, you have one tick right there like that. And you can go to grid lines, vertical. There's your verticals. Okay, and so again, this is personal consumption. You can look at the income number also for this. And actually, this is disposable income, which is here. This is consumption. So we could look at the disposable personal income number also, which is here. So you want to right click, select data. You want to add. This is disposable personal income. And this is consumption. Oops, that one. What am I doing? Yeah, and with the marker, you just want you always want like a round one. All right, and this other one, this is consumption here. So data, edit. Again, how this behaved from the last meeting to now. All right, kind of a thing. So this is down a bit. This is income here. So so if you're not spending, so the reason why this is a little more, these are slightly negative. This might even be a little on the positive end, which is why this is a little bit higher. The difference is the savings. All right, the difference is the savings with this is what this is. So okay, that's consumption. So if we go back to this, so yeah, so we spent a little bit of time, trying to figure, these out. Job gains. Let's look at job gains. Job gains are employment. And again, you have a lot of choices. You have non-farm, civilian labor force, not in the labor force, unemployment level, employment level, right? You have a lot of this. You have employed persons, unemployed persons, not in the labor force, civilian labor force, population ratio, unemployment rate, participation rate, average hourly earnings, non-farm employment. Okay. And again, the non-farm one seems to be the popular one. So and again, these are all the same style of data tables. We do the month-over-month change, the annualized percentage change, the year-over-year percentage change, all that. So again, I think we we got to January with this, and if these are all positive, right? This is just the delta. You can do the same story. You can use the same short term. Yeah, you're in pretty good shape with this, right? You're in pretty good shape. Right there. And what did it say? Are people robust in recent months? So it's positive. So yeah. Okay. So looking at the data here, so just looking at it graphically and then looking at these deltas. Yeah, when you say it's robust, I mean, how are these month over month changes comparable? Well, February is 900,000, right? Yeah. So there's there's three more zeros on this. This is 900,000 jobs added. This is only about 300,000. But they're probably looking here, these types of numbers. Maybe they selectively describe some of these numbers as you went along. Then you have the unemployment rate. Okay, we have that someplace here too, I think. We have it in a couple different places. Yeah. So here's one place where, this is just these are just entries, and I think it's holding pretty steady, remain low. Yeah, remain low. So better than certainly this was the pandemic. This is 2020, so that was terrible, right? So we're a quarter of that, right? We're at a quarter of that. And then again, what are the supply and demand imbalances related to? The pandemic, higher food and energy prices, broader price pressures. Russia's war in the Ukraine is causing a human and economic hardship. The war-related events are contributing to upward pressure on inflation or weighing on global economic activity. It's highly attentive to these risks. So now the inflation, which is what we wanted to speak about. Here's inflation here. And again, I have 4 of these tables here. And again, but this is, I said I was going to update these, but this is December. So we have the December numbers. So here, this is just all items. All right. So for December 2022, what are we doing here? So that's the month over month change. The annual number is what's indicated. So in the summer, the White House played games a couple summers ago, right? The July number was the July, it was this past summer. It was very low, right? It was practically zero, but that was a month over month change. It wasn't annualized, or any of those. But really, the year over year is still about 8%. So I remember that the smirking press secretary at the White House, which is just probably one of the worst people to do that job, is trying to sell it to the American people that we have zero inflation. We had 8.5 inflation, which was really what you had. The year over year numbers are what we look at, but obviously it's in decline. It's not dramatically lower. It's not 2% like we like it. And let's just be realistic, folks. Here's Trump years. There's inflation Trump years, inflation Trump years, inflation Trump years. So again, you make your decision when you vote, in a year from whatever, a year and a half from now. Do you want this as inflation, or do you want this here? Well, let me show you. Let's show you Biden's America. That's Biden, and that whole that's Obama 3.0. Okay, that's their version of a country. That's just the reality of it. That's just, and if people don't like that, I just give my opinion on things. It's my opinion, it's not the school's opinion, not anybody's in the class's opinion. I'm just saying what I think. 3 decades of doing this. Okay, but you think what you want, but and you do the math on all that yourselves. There's some of this other stuff here. It says it's trying to achieve maximum employment and inflation at the rate of 2% over the longer run. In support of these goals, the committee decided to raise the target rate for the federal funds rate from 4.25% to 4.5%. So again, we were reading the notes where it was 3/4 to 1%. So obviously this is as of December. Then you have the January version of this. You have the and actually we could even look at those just very quickly. Just take a look at those. FOMC. I want December. These press releases all look the same. Okay, all of these press releases look identical to one another. And actually, I was thinking of doing the dollar euro exchange. Let's wait to do that for I have some international stuff I could talk to you guys about. Let's wait on that. I was going to maybe do that today. But you're seeing enough here. We're doing enough Excel here. All this Excel stuff is the same. Okay, there's no. It's not very different. Yeah, this meeting is coming up. There it is. Okay, so what do we have here? Calendars, information, transcripts. Yeah, so we have the statement here. We can look at the statement here. So yeah, you have two. You have the January statement and the March statement. So here, let's look at what the range here is 4.5 to 4.75. It's the same thing. I'm reading this press release again. Mine is highlighted 4.5 to 4.75 for January, and the March one 4.75 to 5. Okay, so we're there. Okay, we're up a bit. Okay, like I said, this is just the December one. The committee anticipates that ongoing increases for the target range will be appropriate to maintain to attain a stance of monetary policy that's sufficiently restrictive to return inflation to 2% over time and determine the pace of future increases in the target range. The committee will take into account the cumulative tightening of monetary policy, the lags at which monetary policy affects economic activity and inflation, and economic and financial developments. So, in other words, how the S&P 500 is behaving, how the yields on the 10-year Treasury and the 2-year Treasury and the 3-month bill and all that stuff. And it will continue to reduce its holdings of Treasury securities and agency debt and agency mortgage. So, in other words, it's writing off whatever capital it handed out to the commercial banks. It's trying to write that off now. See, that's not a person. That's a creation of the central bank. A person, that's not a person coming with a deposit. That is not what that is. That's the government just basically creating money on a computer. Is really what it is. So again, they're trying to reduce the size of the balance sheet means taking capital out of circulation is what that means, and strongly committed to returning inflation to 2% objective. So in other words, if it's not lending as much, okay, the idea is that you're not going to have as much economic activity. You're going to lower inflation. That's why it does that in terms of that policy idea. In assessing the appropriate stance of monetary policy, the committee will continue to monitor the implications of incoming information for the economic outlook. The committee will be prepared to adjust the stance of monetary policy as appropriate if risks emerge that could impede the attainment of the committee's goals. The committee assessments will take into account a wide range of information, readings on public health, labor market conditions, people employed, non-farm workers, all that, inflation pressures, the different measures of inflation, inflation expectations, and financial and international developments. Okay. And actually, we didn't need this underlined here. That didn't need to be underlined. Okay. So there you go. And actually, looking at this, what we can and we will do. Let's take the CPI. Let that be our Excel exercise for today. So we have 6 of them. We can take, and actually we might be able to just type in because there's just a couple numbers here. So now this is no longer the Commerce Department. This is Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI data. Like that. Just click on tables or data. And there's a latest numbers. Look at this. Okay, there's the latest numbers. Look at this. So we have the CPI and the Fed. So we're going to have 2 numbers. We're going to have January and February numbers. Popular reports, indices, all urban consumers, and actually data tools, inflation. Yeah, like that. Yeah, this is better. All items, less food, energy, gas. I didn't do these all, and then shelter. 6. Those are the 6 we're looking at. Okay, this is labor statistics. Retrieve the data. And yeah, you just need, forget about the half, forget about what's, and with the, we could type these because there's so few of them here. This is all items. And we're going to do 281, 296.7. And so some of these might be different. You know, some of these might be different. I'm looking that we're pretty good here. So this is all items. So we're here with this. This is 2. I usually download these 3, and these can change. These are not written in stone here. And you're going to take these 2. This is January and February. You're going to click there, paste, special, transpose, values only. There you go. So now, yeah, so our readings are down a bit. We're down to about 6%, 6.5, 6 for all items. All right, pretty good there. And like I said, this table, as we just previously had spoken about here, this is just the same. You have your index here. This is now the month over month inflation is just simply the percentage change in the index. So you take the current month minus the previous month and then divide by the older number. That's all that is. See, so the percentage changes. The current month, previous month, in parenthesis. This is year over year. No, this is annual. This is annualized right here. This is just annualized means 1 plus that rate to the 12th power minus 1. And this is year over year. So this is this August to previous August, that percentage change. And that's real. This is really the inflation reading, right? That's really, so we have up to February. So it's reducing, but it's not reducing a lot, but it's reducing. So, all right. So we did all items. We did that one. What's next? And this is less 285. Yeah, so we're here, and this is 301. I don't think there's any other like precision and stuff. I don't think there's like 15 decimal places passes. I don't think that you have that. The computer science folks will know what I'm talking about. We did these two, right? Copy. So we're here. Yeah, again, paste, special, transpose values. Okay. Yeah, so here. So now we're down to 5.5 from about 6%. Right. For this is less the less food and energy reading. Right, so we did 2 of them so far. We have a couple more to go. I did that one. So what did we do here? This was less food and energy. This is food is next, and hopefully, yeah, food is here. So good. We have that. So this is 316. So yeah, these are a little bit different. 289, 292, 295, 2711, 302, 305, 308, 310, 213, 315, 15875. Oh no, we're good. Yeah, we're good here. So yes, now this is just 319.136, 320.569. Copy this. All items, Alt H, B, S. Again, so now the food it's down. All right, it's down about a good 0.5%, a little bit more than 0.5%, 0.6. So 60 basis points or so. All right, that's about what that is. That's about 60 basis points. And now energy is next. $260, $274, 300, 292. Yeah, we're good. So here we're going to have 283. Okay. There, we're going to copy this. And this is energy. Alt H, B, S, V, E. Good. And down pretty good. Now, we're hearing that yesterday's video talked about Saudi Arabia and the OPEC nations reducing production by 1 million barrels a day or something. So, so obviously there's going to be an impact there. So these numbers may not continue, but right now I think the US has been using it like Obama did. The unfortunately, the policy, in Obama 3.0, Obama's third term, which is what we're in now, the idea is to spend down our reserves, which were which we would save in case of a war, just to score political points with the people who voted these folks in. Okay, but that's the result of that. So anyhow, but there, so this is down significantly, but don't get too excited about that. So all right, all right, wait, that one. Gasoline is next, and gasoline is here. So this is, and then you have gasoline and then shelter. So gasoline was 294.61, 294.759, 299.774. This is 25, 326. Yeah, we're good. That's gasoline. And yeah, so now looking at this is the price of gasoline. It's actually deflationary, it looks like, from last February. It's 2% less, but again, don't get look at the volatility in this. You had, 20, 50%, 60%. It had a pullback at some point. It's been pulling back since December, but again, is the federal government, releasing supply internal that's not being drilled for, which doesn't really make any sense. Okay, it simply doesn't make any sense. And to sit there and say, well, we want to have a green initiative. Well, there's mining involved in the materials that are needed for the batteries for these cars and whatever electric whatever that's out there that is mined for, and that's not mined for using electrical equipment. So I mean, hopefully we'll get there someday, but it's very misplaced and very suspect to go down the green path now. It's just simply very suspect. We're up a bit from January, but December and November were these indices contracted. Actually, you had pretty good contraction from last April. You had a bunch of negative months in 2022. You had one, two, three, four, five, six. So half the months in 2022 had negative month over month index changes for gasoline. And the last one is shelter. All right, so 342, 369.585. Shelter. This is our last. Paste, special, transpose. Okay. And now with the shelter numbers, we're up. The inflation's actually exceeded. It's higher now for shelter for whatever reason, if supply reason, maybe not buildings, not having as much construction anymore, or whatever it might be. But it's actually up to its highest point in the last couple years. Yeah, so the shelter numbers is up. So there's still economic warning clouds that are out there. So what you saw me do today was basically just update. You saw me update my data set here is what you basically saw me do. Okay, but the mechanics of these tables, this is just we're just dropping the numbers in there, just like with the 10-year treasury, the 2-year treasury. It's the same maneuver. This is just the CPI. And then all you're doing up here, this is just month over month change. And this is what month over month, and this is the annualized month over month. In other words, it's 1 plus the month over month rate to the 12th power minus 1, and this is year over year. And you can do averages, what the average for the year is, and things that you can do some of those maneuvers. So for shelter, 1%, 1%, and now we're up to 6%. average change in 2022 compared to Trump years where it was about 3. So you have about double again. If that's what you like in a society, vote Biden in again because that's what you're going to get. You'll get double the inflation rate for shelter relative to the Trump years. Again, if that appeals to you, then he's your guy. So okay, and Obama and all those folks are you for because that's their results. That's their policy. That's the policy of the two Obama administrations, which have a third version of that. When I say a third version, it's filled with all the same cast of characters. Basically. So, okay, all right. So yeah, so we're not going to do we're not going to worry about the dollars to euro, the spot exchange. We'll do that. That's another video. There's a little mention of that in the there's a little mention. I have something on the IMF I want to go over, so we can save that for then. Okay. All right, folks. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.